Backup Cameras, a Part 2 from Jacana Productions. Just a little recap. In Part 1, I tested out the Boyo waterproof license plate backup camera, and then I discovered there's actually a better one with somewhat higher resolution, which it was, but it wasn't that much higher resolution. So I tested it out too. And then I was using the Boyo LCD, which interestingly enough, it says it's a 4x3 here, but actually it's a 16x9. So this really got me thinking, this is a lot of money to pay. If you think about it, we're looking at what, $250 to get a little backup camera which kind of has a somewhat of a crappy image. So I decided in this part 2 to go down the El Cheapo route, and that's what I'm going to do here. So my cheapy quest started out with an $18.44 LCD monitor from Amazon. The cool thing about it was 4x3 aspect ratio, and you'll see why that matters in a little bit later on in the video. The camera, well, I got a $16.99 camera. And this camera, you know, it's not too bad. One of the problems with this particular camera compared to the license plate mount is, yeah, I had to make this custom little bracket. And the camera on the right is another camera I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So I made this custom bracket, and I had to actually drill into the back of my trunk, which actually it's aluminum, so wow. So I made this little bracket, and then I started to compare. I still had the Boyo, compared the two images. So looking at the images, the Boyo's on the top and the new monitor and cameras on the bottom, straight away you can see the top image is really kind of stretched out and distorted, simply because it's a wider angle, and the crucial thing is it's a 16x9 monitor. So what happens is that it really distorts the image somewhat, so much so that it's almost hard to see. And here you can see a little guy on a bicycle going by, and you can see the cheapie on the bottom. The cheapie setup on the bottom is easier to see this little guy going by than on the top. So I was like, straight away there, I was like, you know what? This Boyo is going back. The thing I didn't like, obviously, about the new camera is the Boyo was much wider and in somewhat more usable image, obviously, because it's wider and you can see more stuff on the side. You can see there, I can actually see the bicycle, on the cheapie I can't see the bicycle at all. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep this cheapie camera that I've got, send the whole Boyo monitor and camera setup back, and then look for another wider angle camera, and that's what I did. So the fourth camera I got was this newer waterproof CMOS blah 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 reverse camera for $19.54. I was pretty impressed by the way it mounts, simply because it has this thread. You do indeed have to drill a hole, which is the other ones you don't necessarily. So you do have to drill a hole. You'll see there's a thread, but that just goes into the hole, and on the other side you put the nut. Now this may not work for the kind of car you have, but for me, I decided to drill a hole. I had a hole for the wires anyway, and there you can see it mounted. On the other side of there's some washers and a nut. Now I did a comparison. Obviously, here you can see my the cheapie camera I got, the last cheapie camera that I got, and you'll see right now you'll see a comparison to this. So we can straight away see that it's much wider in both the horizontal and the vertical planes. Now the vertical plane is something that it's a lot wider in the vertical plane for the Boyo. And I did this test, and this is kind of cool. So I taped a screwdriver, and then I had a brush down here, and then I looked at the image, and lo and behold, you'll see in this next video that I can actually see that screwdriver and the brush. The cool thing about this is that when you're reversing, because you have that really wide angle in the vertical plane, you can get really, really, really close to the wall, the object that you're reversing to, which is the point of a backup camera, right? So it's obviously to see, you know, little people, things behind you, but also it's when you're reversing, you want to get nice and close to the thing you're reversing to. And literally, if I didn't have that blue thing over my license plate, you can actually see the numbers on the license plate. That's how fisheye in the vertical plane this camera is. So I decided I'm going to use both of those cameras, seeing my 4x3 little cheapy LCD has inputs for both. Don't know how I'm going to switch between the two, but the one you just looked at, that's the primary one I use for when I'm reversing. Now, I did come to a conclusion that when you're actually reversing into a parking spot, now most of the time, you know, you go pull past the parking spot, unless you're parallel parking, just going into a parking spot that is 90 degrees to the wall or sidewalk. When you turn, using the backup camera is really, you still need to use your mirrors, which I discovered. Now, for some reason, my mirrors are smaller, or I don't know, not concave enough, or convex enough, I don't know, one of the two. So I decided, wait a minute, why don't I just use these little clip-on blind spot mirrors? And lo and behold, they really, really help when you're reversing into a narrow spot to see your cars on either side of you. So that's what I did. I got this little, what is it, a $4 blind spot mirror, and I experimented with a number of those, and they actually help a lot when you're reversing into a parking spot. So the backup camera doesn't really help you looking at the sides of your car when you're reversing. At least my backup cameras don't. The backup camera is solely for when you've kind of straightened up and you're going back. You have equidistant on either side of you, and you're going back into the spot to see how far you can indeed go back into the parking spot without ramming your car into a pillar or possibly an object or something. So that's my conclusion as far as what I'm going to use it for. Now, the conclusion of my quest for the ultimate backup camera. Am I happy with the little $20 LCD? Well, it's okay. Am I happy with the camera? I think these cameras, all of these $20 cameras, are kind of crappy. The solution probably is to go, maybe part 3, there'll be a part 3. I think the solution to really is to get a much better camera. When I say a better camera, probably a camera like an Alpine or a Pioneer, one of these brand name higher end cameras, and mount that maybe to my little LCD, because those are also 150 bucks. So, maybe the picture would be better from that. I know some of these higher end cameras have different, they can do different angles and things like that. So, obviously you can't do that unless you have the custom Alpine head unit. One of the problems with the LCD is it's only like 480 by 200 pixels, so you're missing, normally a full-on standard definition is what, 720 by 540 or something, so you're missing that, what is it, vertical resolution, horizontal resolution. You're missing 200 lines of that horizontal resolution. So, I don't know, the whole thing, these backup cameras, they should just use HD, and part of me thinks just get a GoPro, and just get a little mini HDMI monitor if you want to have a really good one, and get a GoPro and an HDMI monitor and just kind of wire that up. Then you'll get a decent image, because all these little 4x3 and 7-inch monitors, these cheapy ones, are all really, really low resolution. Or get a head unit that has a nice big LCD in it. So sorry for being long-winded, convoluted. If you want a cheapy setup, those 2 or 3 cameras I reviewed, the last ones, are the ones I recommend. Are they going to be waterproof? How long are they going to last? God knows. I mean, they're just not very well made at all. The LCD is probably going to last because it's inside the car, but the other ones, they say they're, IP specified, waterproof. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to put some silicone sealant around them, but that's my summary. And I hope you got something out of this long-winded 20-minute quest for the ultimate backup camera.